In this lesson, we'll learn how we can start to control the render visibility of our geometry. So as you start to work in Softimage, there's probably going to be several different scenarios or lots of different situations where you may find yourself wanting to maybe hide certain objects in the viewport or maybe prevent certain objects from rendering in a very particular way. So we can do that very easily within Softimage. So for example, if we were to take a piece of geometry and select it, with that selected, let's go into our Selection Explorer. Right, and we're going to look for visibility. This is right down here. So just click on this. And we actually have a couple of different tabs to choose from. We'll start off over in the Display tab. Now in this area, this is where we can control whether or not an object is going to be visible in the viewport. Now you'll notice that even though an object is not currently visible in the viewport, if we were to try to render this out, it should still render out just fine. Now, likewise, we can actually tell an object to not be visible in the render, but still be visible in the viewport. This could be useful if we had some kind of an object that was set up maybe as a control object or something for a rig, something that we wanted to be able to grab and manipulate in the viewport, but didn't necessarily want it to be rendered. We can also come in and tell an object to not be selectable. So now, if we were to come in and enable that option, you can see that this object can no longer be selected. Now, if you tell an object to no longer be selectable, at that point, pretty much the only way to get to it is through your Explorer window. So if I were to go into my Scene Explorer, go back to my Object Orange, you can see that this is a slightly darker color of gray, whereas all the other objects are listed in black. That means that this is an object that is not currently selectable, but we can still select it through the Explorer. So just select it, and in my case, it jumps me right back to my visibility property page. But if I didn't see that, I could just expand this and look for the visibility. Now I can turn my selectability back on, and now I have no problem grabbing it. So these options just by themselves are actually really useful for being able to come in and control this. Now we can actually get a much higher level of control by going into the Rendering tab. Now this is where we can start to get really precise as far as our rendered results. So let me come in and just try to move this over to the side. Let's start with maybe just a quick render. Alright, and again I do have my orange object currently selected. Let's say maybe I wanted this object to maybe not be visible within the render itself, but maybe I still want to see the shadows from this. Well, we can come in and disable its primary visibility, which makes the object no longer visible in the render itself, but we can still see things like the shadows from that object. We can still see its reflections in other objects in the scene. Right, now, likewise, we could actually flip this around. We could actually have the object be visible, but maybe not be calculated for any of the secondary rays. So now you can see that there are no more reflections on this object because the secondary rays are no longer being calculated on here. And also, this object is no longer visible in any other object's reflections. Now we can actually come in and start to get a little bit more precise with our control. So for example, let's say we wanted this object to maybe not cast any kind of shadows. Disable that. And you can see now the object no longer has any shadows underneath it, although it is still receiving shadows from other objects. You can see we have a little bit of a shadow being cast over here, which we can also disable that by turning off its ability to receive any kind of shadows. Alright, excellent, and there we are. Now we can also start to get in here and start to work on things like the reflections. So let's say maybe for whatever reason we wanted this object to look just like it is now, except we don't want it to show up maybe in any object's reflections. So all we have to do is disable its ability to be visible in any other kind of reflections. And as soon as we disable that, you can see that the object itself remains unchanged, except now you can no longer see it in any other object's reflections. Now, if we wanted it to still be visible in the reflections, just maybe not have any reflections calculated on that particular object itself, we could either do that through the material, or if you actually had several objects using this same material, that really wouldn't be an option. So in addition to being able to control the reflections on your material, you can still control them on a per object basis. So if I had a lot of different objects that had the same material, but maybe only one of them I wanted to maybe not have any reflections, just simply go in and disable its ability to be a reflection caster. Alright, and there we are. So you can start to see with this how we gain a very, very high level of control over whether or not this object is going to be visible in shadows, in reflections. We can also start to disable its ability to be seen through any kind of transparent or refractive objects. We can even start to worry about its final gathering contribution or global illumination. We really won't talk about either of these two options because these do go a little bit outside of our introductory topics that we want to cover. But if you do want to learn more about the final gathering and the global illumination options, you can refer to our course on the Introduction to Mental Ray. And we'll actually cover these, plus a lot of additional topics in that course. So that's a look at how we can start to gain a very, very high level of control over our rendered results within Softimage.